All right, before we head into the weekend movie spotlight, let's preview 2 films and give you guys some options as you take a break. Our 2 wonderful movie critics here in the studio, Jason Bechervaise and Darcy Paquet. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
All right, well, I'm excited because I just heard a little snippet of your conversation, Jason, in talking about this Korean film that we're going to be previewing, The Spy Gone North. Kongjak. It's a film set in the 90s based on a real-life person. Premiered earlier this year at the Cannes Film Festival in their midnight screening section. And you think of spy film, you might think of, I guess, in modern times, Daniel Craig or something debonair like that. But this is maybe a different type of story, Darcy?
Yes. I mean, despite being a big budget film with, big stars and, has a running time of well over 2 hours, this isn't a movie that has action scenes per se. It's a much more prosaic kind of look to what spying is like in the real world. And so the main character, played by Hwang Jung-min, he's a former military officer who pretends to leave the army behind and take up work as a businessman. But actually, it's all just a front because, he's agreed to work undercover as a spy. And so his primary mission is to approach a group of high-ranking North Korean VIPs who are based in China and then to propose some kind of joint business project with them.
Now, the political backdrop of the mid-90s, maybe for our younger listeners, this is going to seem like a bygone era, but it's actually very key to this film. Jason, can you explain what was going on at the time?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of parallels to today. One of those is the suspicion that North Korea is developing nuclear weapons or even developed a nuclear weapon. And so a spy is sent into the North, tried to infiltrate the government there to determine what exactly is going on and how far they've progressed in terms of their nuclear weapons. And also, there's also this interesting kind of subplot. There's actually a major plot in the film where in terms of the South Korean political kind of arena, where the conservative government are becoming increasingly nervous that that Kim Dae-jung could be elected as president. And so one of the things they try to do is try to kind of orchestrate a plan to ensure that he is not elected by perhaps try and get antagonizing North Korea and getting them to do something which will then, in their eyes, prevent Kim Dae-jung being elected. As we know, that didn't happen, but it's interesting to see these other things going on in the kind of political sphere as well, and how it's all connected.
There are definitely, the way you describe it, seem to be a lot of parallels because often conservatives of the modern era are accused of using that commie baiting tactic or putting North Korea as the boogeyman and maybe trying to conflate people they deem to be opposition or more progressive. So North Korea in the news back then, obviously dominating the news right now as well, Darcy. This film has been developing for a couple of years, so this was obviously before the big hoopla we've had now with inter-Korean reconciliation. Do you think it does provide a pretty interesting perspective on the political situation?
Yeah, I mean, this film's timing is really good. It's kind of a gift to the film, I guess, that, relations have improved and that there is this new talk of, exchange and reconciliation. But there's certainly very interesting parallels between now and back then, where you have political tensions on one side and then you have the idea that, if you do promote some exchange, that things may improve. I think the story resonates much more now than it would have a year ago when people were much more pessimistic about the situation. But, it's a very realistic film as well. And so it, similar to JSA that came out in 2000, that seemed to perfectly capture people's feelings about, the relationship between the two countries at the time of this first summit. I think this movie now is a good, even though it's set in the past, I think it's a good reflection on today.
Jason, you've been very diplomatic, but also quite honest in your assessments of these films. These Korean movies that have come out recently. This is apparently the last of the big 3 Korean blockbusters during this summer season. Illyang the Wolf Brigade, that was widely considered a flop. the second installment of Along with the Gods, which is doing quite well in the box office. So The Spy Gone North, this is, again, not this kind of fancy Casino Royale type of spy film. It seems like a bit more of a less mainstream film. What do you think of its commercial appeal, and what do you think about the film itself overall?
Yeah, it's definitely a slow burner. And so in that sense, it's like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. There's a lot more dialogue than action sequences, but I think that for me, that's what works so well in the film. And so people going in looking for this kind of action flick like Mission Impossible or something like that, they are going to be disappointed. But this is a spy thriller that explores inter-Korean relations in such a manner that I think is one of the best films in that regard for a while. I think it's beautifully crafted. The acting is excellent. And I just love the way it all comes together, and there's just a brilliant kind of finale that's emotional, but it's not too sentimental. But there's also some really orchestrated sequences in the lead up to that as well. And like I say, it's beautifully crafted. The mise en scène is absolutely fantastic. And there are these scenes that are set in Pyongyang, and I was blown away. I was like, how did they shoot these scenes?
Yeah, my jaw kind of dropped at that moment.
They look so real. It's like they managed to get a camera crew over into Pyongyang and shoot these scenes. And so it doesn't look like CGI heavy or anything like that. They've been put together meticulously, and I was blown away.
Would you agree, Darcy? Did you like the film yourself personally?
I mean, for the most part, I'm not quite as enthusiastic as Jay. I mean, it's a film that, what can we say? There's a lot of talking in the film. It's a film that requires a lot of mental effort to like keep with it, and partly, I don't know. I mean, the acting style is some people will really like, and other people maybe not. I mean, for me, it feels like very high quality acting, that the type of acting that would kind of be aimed at winning awards, but for me,
there's a lot of makeup.
Overdone.
There is like a lot of makeup. I agree with Darcy, actually. There is a lot of that kind of acting in the film, looking like they might try and pick up a few awards, and you see Kim Jong-il in there, and in that sense, yeah, I agree, and and definitely there's a lot of dialogue, and you need to be somewhat patient.
Yeah, but it has had really good reviews, like at Cannes.
Yeah.
You know, all the reviews that came out at Cannes were quite strong, and so I think a lot of people will enjoy it.
And bottom line, it seems like of the three big Korean blockbusters, you guys like this third one the best out of the three.
I guess
okay.
so. I'm really sad about what happened with Inran.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't dislike Inlang as much as others did. I think over time, I think that will develop more appreciation. But I mean, it wasn't quite the film I was hoping it to be. Whereas this film was actually better than I expected. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. We're going to go to another release. This is potentially going to make a lot of money here, especially with the Korean fans who've enjoyed the first one. The sequel to Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again. Jason, what's this about?
Okay, well, the 2008 film, of course, is a huge hit, particularly in the UK, where it actually became the then second most successful film of all time in Great Britain as the economy went up in smoke. The sequel, helmed and co-written by Oliver Parker, with many of the cast returning. So we have Amanda Seyfield, Pierce Brosnan, Colin Firth, Julie Walters, et al. We have new additions including Lily James, Cher, Jeremy Irvine. And this film is set after the events of the first film, where Sophie Shodham, the daughter of a single mother, Donna, invites a trio of paternal candidates to a wedding. So that's the first movie. And then in the second film, it works both as a prequel and a sequel. So Donna's daughter is
Godfather 2 thing going on.
So Donna's daughter is putting together a party to celebrate the reopening of a hotel a year after her mother's death. So Meryl Streep doesn't play a big role in this film. She's kind of at the end. So she invites her three fathers along with the husband. And as many of them struggle to make it to this kind of fictional Greek island, the film flashes back to Donna's earlier life. She's played by Lily James, when she first encountered these three men and fell in love with the island. So it's kind of a similar thing going on, because you have the three father figures there,
Right.
and you have the husband, and,
Yeah.
you have the lots of singing, of course. But ultimately, I think it works a lot better than the original, the first film.
Okay, interesting. Now, Darcy, we were talking about Incredibles 2 and how you guys were saying, well, this is almost like a cookie cutter, exact same premise of what it was 10 years ago, and you might have just had the sequel maybe just come out 6 months after the first film. This sounds like almost the same thing, where it's a very similar premise and style and everything. Would you say it works?
I think there's only one thing you need to ask yourself regarding this film, and it's like, did you drink the KoolAid? And I drank all the KoolAid. I drank like a full pitcher of KoolAid. It is pretty much similar to the first one. I think it's a little slicker than the first, the way that it's put together. Although the singing, I have to say, the men in this film still cannot sing.
That's very true.
And the younger men who they got to play themselves in their younger years also cannot sing.
Right. So not everyone can be Hugh Jackman.
But that didn't stop the first film either.
Okay.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. You got to drink the Kool-Aid, and you definitely did drink the Kool-Aid. Jason, did you drink the Kool-Aid? The first one, as you said, massive success, hundreds of millions of dollars. I think we were talking very briefly about The Greatest Showman, how that really kind of just struck a nerve with audiences, despite maybe not being the most well-loved critically movie, but everyone really enjoyed that film. Why do you think these kind of films resonate?
I actually was thinking about that film as well as I was watching this. Obviously the music plays a big part, but I think with the first film, I think it was fortuitous timing, because certainly in the UK, because it was released in 2008. And the financial sector kind of went into disarray, causing a somewhat depressing mood. And Mamma Mia was there to cheer everyone up. Literally, I was in a screen watching in the UK. It was depressing outside, and suddenly the mood had lifted. ABBA had come into the cinema, and it was a feel-good factor film that made it the success it was. And of course, ABBA are immensely popular, and they still are. And so it would have, I think, struck a chord anyway, but I think the time worked really well. I think another thing that works quite well in this film is that you have some strong female leads, and you don't get enough of these films where films so male driven, and I think this attracts both male and females, obviously, but I think it's just ultimate feel good factor film that resonates with a great deal of people. It makes you feel happy.
It's always interesting because ABBA, for someone as old as me, has really been a polarizing group where they were widely derided. A lot of people kind of detested that type of music and what disco stood for. And then we've seen the sort of a revival, more of a hipster kind of enhancement in popularity. Here in Korea, though, it's not really polarizing. Just like in the UK, very popular. I know so many people here who just absolutely love the first film. A lot of competition at the box office. We're talking about Along with the Gods and all that. Darcy, you've been good enough to give us some analysis on box office prognostications. What do you think? Who's going to win the big battle?
Certainly I think people will enjoy it. And, it's a feel-good movie that's going to work really well. And in terms of making people feel better. And this year, too, is kind of a down year for in many respects around the world. So, it's certainly doing very, very well in other countries. Here in Korea, it has more competition at the box office. But I think this is the type of film that will hang on for a number of weeks. And
it has more staying power, you think, than some of the other big blockbusters where there's a big dip in the next forthcoming weeks?
Yeah, I would expect. Actually, I predict both this film and The Spy Gone North to hang around for a while. Because, August is kind of a quieter month, like the second half of August. And, good films tend to stick around until Chuseok almost. So, I expect this film will pick up more and more fans, and they'll all tell each other to go see it. So,
all right.
I think it'll do well.
And bottom line, both of you guys seem to like the film as well. And so if people end up going to it, they're in for a good time, especially if you drank the Kool-Aid like everyone here in the studio.
Bring your own
it's good fun. It's a lot of... I enjoyed it immensely.
All right. Well, we hope you guys enjoy your weekend as well. Thanks as always for joining us, Jason, Darcy. See you guys next week, hopefully.
Okay. Have a great weekend.